Hello, this is Pastor Deborah again, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Spiritual Babylon, the Kingdom of Darkness on Earth. This is going to be episode number 3. We've been working through another study that I wrote out when I was having to study all about Satan and his kingdom. And who is Satan? He was the anointed cherubim, one of the high archangels, who was so beautiful and given so much power and authority in the kingdom of heaven. But he started becoming prideful and wanting all the glory for himself, that his heart began lusting. He became greedy and hating God, his own creator, and full of pride, and so God had to cast him out. Remember, a spirit cannot die. They can be removed out of a particular position and a particular place, but they cannot die. So Satan had his own kingdom, his own city, his own authority and power within him, called spiritual Babylon. And he knew God's plans. God's plan was he was going to have an offspring, a son, who was going to be both male and female. And they were going to populate through having earthly babies, which the spirit part of us would be in, on this planet that he created out of the vastness of nothingness called Earth. And inside that dirt body was going to be a spirit, a forever person, who carried within it the knowledge, the light, the truths, the righteousness, the plans, the ministry of the kingdom of heaven. So here on planet Earth, God's kingdom could come through the spirit, through the soul and the physical body. And Earth, all of nature and creation and people and governments and everything would look like the kingdom of heaven. And the spirit part of us, the unseen part, would rule and reign from the unseen through and to the seen part of us. And in my other big book episode called The Kingdom of Darkness, we're working also through these different themes and who was this king of darkness and what the kingdom was about. But in this study, it's called Spiritual Babylon. It takes us back to the beginning and how the first city and the first people, the first towns were all started. And this is going to be episode number 3 in our teaching and your learning of the kingdom of darkness, spiritual Babylon, on earth and within the human soul and spirit. That's right. We have a kingdom within us that's to come through us, through our soul, our thoughts, words, action, deeds, so that the earth, our decisions, our relationships to humanity, to each other, our development of governments, how we treat nature and creatures, was all to represent and be under the authority of a spiritual king. Not a president, not a prime minister, but a king, spiritually. And through that king came the kingdom of heaven. That was the pattern. Satan knew that, because he knew it as Lucifer. And his title was Son of the Morning. He was an offspring of the first age of creation. He was never the Son of God. He was never an offspring of God. As a child, he was a servant, an angel, a high one of the 3 archangels. For there was Gabriel and Michael also. But Lucifer, he was the one who became a traitor. He disobeyed, he became greedy, his heart became full of lust, and it changed him to an evil, wicked person. So here in episode number 3, we're going to continue with our study of how the spiritual kingdom of darkness started its first city and how it spread in humanity and on the earth. Spiritual Babylon. All right, let's have a quick prayer and we will begin. Dear God of creation and the God of the true kingdom of heaven, thank you for teaching us, showing us, revealing to us what we do not understand about us, ourselves, humanity, nature, the world, governments, politics, and how we have no clue of what's really going on through us, and that we don't even know that that is happening. Help us to understand what is going on the earth, through us, with us, and even with our permission. So thank you for being a great and mighty teacher. Amen. Satan, the spiritual adversary of God, as he is now called instead of Lucifer. Well, he got cast down to the earth long, long ago, probably even before the dinosaurs were created. And he had learned of the pattern, the desires, the hopes, the wishes of the king, God, here on earth, through humanity. And when he got to the earth, first he went bonkers. And he just let his demonic spirits that were under him, 1/3 of all the angels in the kingdom of heaven, do whatever they wanted to do. They were so happy to be free of the control of God. They did some horrible stuff to the animals, to the earth, to humans, and the earth and humanity became so evil and wicked. And that is when a great flood had to come and wipe everybody and every creature off the face of the earth. And when that happened, God had a plan to save humanity and nature in a boat, an ark. And after that great flood and everything started again, Satan realized he had to get control of his demonic spirits that fell with him and become organized. And that is when spiritual Babylon started after the flood. And this is what I learned from all my years of study. So Satan learned he had to organize himself. He had to have a plan. He had to get control of his demonic spirits. So they began by creating a city, Babylon, in the plains of Shinar. They were originally told from the ark, go out and spread over all the world, repopulate it. The animals went out of the ark. The 3 wives, the 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, went out. But as time went on, they didn't spread out. They all went together out of fear, and they stayed together, and that wasn't God's plan. They stayed, and they created, with the help of Satan, the first city, Babylon. And they became known as Babylonians. But Satan became smarter. He realized he couldn't show himself openly. So he hid himself and his demons in the spirit realm. And they even went into the dirt bodies, because that was the pattern. Each dirt body had a spiritual being inside, a forever person. And in that forever person was supposed to be the Spirit of God, leading and guiding the spirit, teaching it and training it, enlightening it, giving it dreams and visions. And then the spirit would relay that, transmit that to the soul, to the biological brain. Then the biological brain, the soul, would use its body to do what the spirit had suggested or commanded, which had come from Satan and his demonic spirits. Now that was always the pattern. That was from God himself. But it was supposed to be God and his words of truth and light, righteousness and justice and mercy, forgiveness and love, joy and peace in the forever person spirit, and out through the forever person to the soul. So Satan took the pattern for himself. He became a hidden one. So he was spiritually there, inside of us and in the animals. And he even put his demonic spirits as gods over everything. Water, plants, trees, animals, the weather, the moon, the stars. Because God's spirit was in everything. Satan was taking his place, so he could have his own kingdom, one of darkness and confusion, perversion, and it could stand against God of creation himself. And Satan would have what he wanted, his own kingdom, his own territory, and he'd be the king. And he would laugh and mock at God of creation to his face and say, what you had desired to happen on this planet with these creatures called man, I have done. I have done it. They are mine. They are not yours. He became a deeply hidden one to humanity. But he had ways that people would depend on him, through religion, through sacrifices of blood, through worship. He knew the pattern, and he knew what was to happen. So here in episode number 3, let's pick up. So inside of the dirt human body, inside spiritually, controlling it, guiding it, speaking to the soul from the spirit, Satan began to spiritually guide the human race, humanity, and animals and creatures, and all of creation, the weather, the earth, the fire, the water, and guide them as God was supposed to create the kingdom of darkness on earth. So there was now a kingdom of darkness with a king, Satan, inside of a human spirit, inside of a dirt body. And on the earth, he put his demonic spirits in the waters, the trees, the plants, the animals, the weather. And he said there were gods there. And people worshiped the God in the water, the seas, the fish, the animals. And when bad things happened, they were so afraid they were told to sacrifice a human being, because in order to make the anger of this God subside, there had to be blood spilled. That's all the pattern of God. And Satan took it for himself. So Satan began to spiritually guide humanity, who now were his children, his offspring, made in his image and his likeness of his heart. And what was that? The sin of rebellion. Sin means death. Traitor. Rebellion means you knew a rule, a law, and you either purposely or unknowingly disobeyed it. Satan's heart and his image and likeness was now a heart of iniquity and perverseness. His 5 I-wills were now ruling a human, nature, all of the demons, and he was going to rise and be worshipped above all the clouds, above all humans, and eventually he would set himself up in humanity as kings and emperors, pharaohs, and he would rule nations and cities. He would have on earth, through the slavery of humanity and the slavery of nature itself and all of its creation, through their ignorance and their captivity to him, what he had wanted. He would have the earth as his, the dirt body as his, the soul as his, the spirit as his, the weather, creation, the gold, the silver, the jewels, the water, the fish, the animals. They were now his, he thought. Satan would have what God had designed. He would have children. He'd have a kingdom. He would take over this newly formed land called the earth in the seen world. He would usurp God as he always wanted to, and as he began doing in the garden. So Satan began with one city, Babylon. And he set up one of the children of Noah's children, of Ham, through Cain. And that's a great story that I'll have to teach you about one day. Nimrod was his name, became Satan's chosen one from the generational line of Canaan, who was the cursed son of Ham, the grandson of Noah from the great flood. So Nimrod was a spiritually chosen one to build, rule, and reign Babylon, the great city, the first kingdom and king on earth of the kingdom of darkness, spiritual Babylon. Then from out of Babylon, from this beginning, Satan's kingdom of darkness began to grow. It was birthed, sort of speaking. It needed more than just a tall tower reaching up to heaven, which it built, called the Tower of Babel. It was a high place above the clouds. The kingdom needed a family to help rule this kingdom, which was always God's pattern. Humanity would be a family all over the world, one family, brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, aunts and uncles, grandmas and grandpas, who would rule every city, every nation, every town, as the rightful spiritual rulers for the Father of the kingdom of heaven, God himself, that were special, that were his chosen bloodline. And Satan knew that this was to be all of humanity, because he was a part, he saw this plan, he knew this plan was the plan of the King of the kingdom of heaven. And he knew he had to have a family. He had to have a wife who would have children, bloodlines. And this family would be his chosen inner kingdom, the one that would rule the cities, the nations, and only them would be the legal, spiritual rulers. And this king had to have a wife and children, and they too were to praise and worship and pray to Satan. They were to dance and have music to him, sing and be joyful, and sacrifice. So Satan had Nimrod, the very first king, develop a family. And we'll pick up in the next episode about Nimrod's family, the first family to rule and reign spiritual Babylon from the unseen realm through bloodlines. And we still have this bloodline on earth today. All right, I'll catch up with you in the next episode of Spiritual Babylon. I hope you stay tuned and you keep studying. There's a lot more to tell you. All right, bye-bye.